Hello and welcome to Coffee Catch-Ups with me, Tanya Wiley.
And me, Amelia Beaumont.
Coffee Catch-Ups is a Christian podcast all about life in your 20s. But just a disclaimer before we begin, we are not theologians or teachers. We're just two people who love Jesus and wanna follow him.
Today we are talking about the wonderful, joyful topic of disappointment.
Yeah, cheerful, huh?
Very cheerful.
Disappointment is part of life. And sometimes they can be really difficult. A real challenging disappointments and how we navigate them. Because I think, you could get lost in disappointment. It can also, potentially lead to cynicism or you can even despair in that. And you can think, oh, it's always gonna be disappointing. Life is just so disappointing. So yeah, I think let's talk about it. Let's bring some light and hope into an area that everybody deals with almost, sometimes on a daily basis. You're like, oh, this has happened again. Oh.
Also, particularly something that I was thinking about as we were kind of thinking about this topic of disappointment before we started recording was actually like, as people in our 20s, often our disappointment is really invalidated by older people. Um,
Ooh.
and this is a generalization and not everybody does this, and it's some people mean very well, but like, oh, you're young,
Yeah.
it'll work out,
Mm.
or like, actually, well, you don't know what disappointment is because you've not experienced what I've experienced in my life, and I experienced this further down the line, therefore you can't possibly know. And I think when people who are a generation or two older than us say that, they mean very well.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like comfort you, but actually, like, I think it often really invalidates like our experiences when people say that. And so actually, like, what we want to do here is kind of validate these
Yeah.
feelings, because it is valid to be disappointed, and it is valid to, when things don't work out the way that you want them to, or something happens that is really not what you wanted to happen, and bigger than that, actually it is okay to be disappointed. So
I love your point about generations. That's really, I'd not thought about it, but you're so right. Because I was even thinking, like, not even in your 20s, GCSE results. Uh,
mm,
when you're an adult, you go, oh, they don't matter.
yeah.
They matter to the 16-year-old who's just got them. That's been the focus of their year. And then they might get disappointing results. And adults automatically go, well, don't worry, GCSEs don't really matter. And although that in some ways is true, but actually their experience, that might not be the most helpful thing,
mm.
having that disappointment. I've got a question for you, Amelia. How do you deal with disappointment personally? Like, what's your kind of go-to?
Yeah, so like my go-to, really, my answer is different to what I think it should be. But like, so this is not a spiritual answer that you're about to get. But my go-to when I'm disappointed is I feel sorry for myself a little bit, and quite often I will sit on my bed or on the sofa, and I will kind of either lose myself in scrolling a little bit on social media because I don't want to think about the situation that's just happened or whatever it is. Um, or I'll kind of just be like, right, I'm just going to stick Netflix on. Sometimes I do spiral a little bit. I often let my thoughts kind of get the better of me. Um, and, you know, sometimes I can get quite down. I will say that that doesn't often last for long.
Good.
But something I've become a lot better at recently is choosing to worship.
Oh, nice.
And
Now we're getting to the
it's
spiritual answer,
yeah,
everyone. Here we go. We've gone a full
here we
circle.
go. So we still have the non-spiritual bit, and it still very much happens, but we're getting better at like going, right, okay, I didn't like this. This is awful. Um, but what am I going to do about it? Can I control this situation? No.
Yeah.
Can I make this better immediately? No. Um, so what am I going to do instead? I'm going
Mm.
to worship. But it has been a real kind of journey. This is only something that I've really started doing quite recently.
Mm.
Um, like, for example, my MOT for my car in the autumn was like a ridiculous amount of money, and I do not earn a ridiculous amount of money. And it was really, really difficult. And I was like, I didn't see it coming either. I'd been told that there was nothing particularly kind of wrong with my car, and then the MOT came back, and I was like, oh my goodness. Um, and I cried, and then I stood in the living room, and in a very non-tuneful way, I scream sang "Praise" by Brandon Lake and Thanksgiving, and like songs like that, like really upbeat worship songs, because I was like, right, in this situation, this sucks and I hate it, but I'm choosing to worship anyway. And I cannot tell you the difference that it makes.
Yeah.
Um, like it didn't change my financial situation. It didn't change the fact that my car was very unwell. Praise the Lord, it was fixed and it is okay. But like, it didn't change any of that, but it changed my heart posture. And I reminded myself through worshiping that actually, like, who is my God? My God is my provider. My God is my healer, and my God is my father. Um, and all of that stuff, it just kind of goes actually like, who is God to me?
Mm.
And is he bigger than this situation? The answer is always yes. Spoiler alert.
That was
Um,
really beautiful, Amelia. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think we went on a real journey with you there from
yeah,
let's be honest, there's a real fleshly thing here. There's a hurt, there's a pain and disappointment, and there's no getting away from that. It is hurt. I was
mm,
expecting this, and quite often disappointment follows excitement. I mean, maybe not in your MOT version of the story, but in something, for example, you're going for a promotion and you've got an interview and you're excited. There's an anticipation. When you get, oh, sorry, didn't get the job. It's like this sudden kind of and then drop off, and it hurts, and it's not very nice. And disappointment isn't fun, and it's painful.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, absolutely cry. I think that is 100% right. And feel what you have to feel. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking about how do I deal with disappointment, and it does, again, like you said, Amelia, depend on the disappointment. I get a lot of disappointment in my job. Like I talked about it several times on the podcast,
mm,
but I'm an actor, and the very nature of being an actor is that you constantly go on auditions, and the success rate is small compared to how many auditions you do. And so you're very used to getting the email that said, "It was nice to meet you, but no, thank you." And I've noticed myself as I've done this job for longer and longer, going, "Yeah, okay, fine. Yep, fine." And I boxed that disappointment off straight away.
mm,
Disappointed. And in some ways, I'm handling it incredibly well because I'm not on the floor every time um, I get a no. I'm not crying every time I get a no. But I had a friend challenge me on it recently, and I'll get your thoughts perhaps. Because what I do before I go to an audition, and I've given that same advice to people when they're going for interviews, is walk in like the job is yours with confidence and the understanding that you absolutely, this is for you. This is your job. You've got this. And walk out and say you didn't get it
mm,
so that you prepare yourself for the disappointment. Because for me, that many no's, you have to be ready, and it's a survival instinct. Um, but my friend challenged me on it because she went, "Do you expect disappointment all the time? Have you
mm,
made yourself in doing this survival technique so expectant of disappointment that you no longer feel it? And do you expect that that doesn't show up in other areas of your life?"
yeah. So
Oh,
such a good point.
I was like, whoa, when people challenge you and you're like, I can't speak or move. Yeah, you probably have a point. And I wonder that there may be lots of people who just go and compartmentalize disappointment
Mm,
and go, okay, it didn't happen again. I don't know if you resonate, but dating, singleness, went on a date, was rubbish. Oh, great. Yeah, normal. Um,
mm,
there is a survival thing to not being bothered by your disappointments. Uh,
yeah.
and there's a danger that you just expect it. And you do,
Mm,
and for us as Christians, if you're in that place where you're just constantly, yeah, I'm used to disappointment. I expect it. I expect people to let me down because that's all people have ever done. So I won't allow them the opportunity to disappoint me because I
Mm,
know that they've disappointed me loads of times. Yeah, your mum might not have showed up when you needed her, or maybe somebody left you when you were a kid, or maybe your husband left you. Whatever your story is, hurt from other people, disappointment from other people can leave us with wounds where we go, not again. Never again will I let somebody do that to me again. I will protect myself. I will make myself this survival being that isn't disappointed. This is
mm.
where I thought I was going with this point. But as Christians, do we really expect that that won't also show up in our faith and our relationship with God?
Yeah, exactly that. I was, as you were speaking then, I was like, oh, I wonder whether that then translates into being disappointed with God. Because like, we I don't know about you, when you kind of read the Gospels and go through like the miracles of Jesus and all
Mm.
these incredible things that he did, and then, you know, go through Acts and like all the incredible things that God did through the apostles in Acts, and all of that, and you're like, I think many people would say, oh, well, things like that don't happen today.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then you kind of, even if you believe that God can still do those kinds of things today, you kind of end up with a, well, he did do it then, and he could still do it today, but he probably won't.
yeah,
Or, well, I prayed for healing once, and that back or that foot or whatever it was didn't get healed. So what's really the point in trying again?
mm,
And I think you're totally right. Is that you kind of sometimes that, as much as I think that is quite wise in terms of like the job thing, and coming out maybe kind
mm,
of, going, okay, probably didn't get it, and that's fine. And then you do, like you say, it's a survival instinct, and maybe that does kind of protect you in some ways. I try to do that quite a lot with jobs.
yeah,
Um, but actually, like, it's making sure that that doesn't translate into your faith, because we're so good at putting God into a human-sized box,
mm,
whereas actually that's not the case.
yeah,
Like, he's so much bigger than
mhm,
that little box. And so my point with all of this stuff is really kind of like, actually, God is capable of anything and everything, and
yeah,
of so much more than we could ask or imagine. And like, all of that disappointment in life, it's so crucial that we don't
yeah.
transfer that to God, because he is so incredible.
But I wonder how much we do it without noticing, how much you
Yeah.
put God on trial for your own disappointments.
Mm,
How much you lose almost. For me, I think there's something connected from disappointment, so connected with hope. Because if you think about what a disappointment is, it's usually because you've been hoping for something and you've been disappointed.
yeah.
And I think of some of the big disappointments in this. I'm gonna go serious on this. I'm gonna go something big like you're longing for a baby and
Mm,
you're disappointed because you can't have one. So you've been hoping for a baby and it's been shattered. You've been hoping for a spouse and you haven't got one. You've been hoping for financial security and you haven't got one. You've been hoping for good test results or for healing and it hasn't happened. And how much in that hope for something, hope that do we bring God into that? And then when we get disappointed, do we stand God on trial with our
mm,
hope? And sometimes when these disappointments happen, I think we might not necessarily realize it, but sometimes you go in somewhere in you goes, well, God has let me down again, particularly with ones that continual disappointments, um, continual things go, oh, oh God, where are you? Um, but you know what? I was speaking to a friend today, and I think God invites us to wrestle with Him in our disappointment. Um, and just tying into a point I said earlier about, I think when you're disappointed, you should feel it. I think you should
mm,
feel it. Not for too long, but if you're disappointed, don't be so British and go, oh, it's fine. Feel it, but feel it with God. There's a verse
mm,
in, I think it's in Psalms. Let me just find it. Yeah, I love it. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. He saves the crushed in spirit.
mm.
I love that.
So
It's
beautiful.
crushed. And I think that's what disappointment is. Don't you think crushed? I'm feeling crushed. This is the weight of this disappointment is crushing me. I felt that. I felt the weight of disappointment. It's heavy sometimes. It's like, here we go again. Here I hold my singleness again, a disappointment again.
Mm,
Um, and I love that he comes to you. Literally, the Lord comes to you. He is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit.
mm,
Um, so I think in the moments that you're really feeling it, like you said right at the beginning, where you were crying out to God, literally crying and singing. That is what we need to do because it allows us to invite God into it rather than just hold him account over there in judgment of our Lord.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of this comes down to um how you see God. Like,
Oh,
what is your
oh,
perception of God,
yeah,
and who is he to you? Because I think it's very easy in the good times and the easy times to say, yeah, God's really good. He's my provider, he's my father, like, he's this, he's that, and he is so many amazing things. God is love. Um and then, when those disappointments come, when you get that phone call to
mm,
say, no, you didn't get the job, the one that you were really, really hoping for. I've had that, and I've had that quite recently. And it's devastating. In that time, it is a real test of who do you see God as? And do you think he is this just kind of like cosmic puppeteer that is, playing with you,
yeah,
or just kind of making you dance for his own entertainment? No, that's not who he is. But some of us do have this perception of like, okay, well, God's pulling all these strings. Why can't he pull them in my favor just for once?
yeah, yeah,
And and I find myself going like, God, I know you can do this, so why don't you do this? Um,
yeah,
and you kind of you doubt the fact that he does have this, this plan, this, but with like the greater goods behind it. It's like actually like he knows exactly what he's doing and exactly what he's allowing as well, in order for you to grow into the person that he needs you to be for your calling.
mm,
Um, and
I
and
love
I
that.
think, yeah, and it's really, I'm just I'm realizing this now. I'm realizing this now as I'm talking. I'm like, oh yeah, like, and I think, it's so difficult, especially at this kind of stage, to see what the potential is for your future, especially if you are in a position of like, oh well, my finances aren't great, like I can barely afford to support myself, or
Mm,
I'm single now. When is that going to change? And if that does change, like, well, you've got this timeline, and it's not going to happen in the way I thought it would because this has happened now, and all of this kind of stuff. But it's like actually, like, God knows
mm,
if you are destined to be married, like actually who that person is, and He knows who you need to be for that person and who they need to be for you. And actually, in this time of financial difficulty, maybe He's teaching you something about
yeah,
money,
yeah,
and and all of that stuff, whatever it is, in this time, like Tanya said, going really serious without a baby.
mm,
um like, sometimes there is no rhyme or reason that we can figure for that, but actually, and I really don't want to dismiss that, because that is an incredibly valid disappointment and an incredibly difficult thing to walk through. um and but in that time, are you looking to him for your comfort,
yeah,
or are you, as Tiny said, are you putting him on trial?
mm,
And it's not that doing one or the other will make something happen. It won't necessarily make something change immediately.
yeah,
But actually, how are you using this time, almost of waiting? I think a lot is involved so much in disappointment. Um, how
mm,
are you using this time of waiting? Are you sitting in your disappointment and doing absolutely nothing and letting yourself spiral?
yeah,
Or are you asking God to reshape you as a person, and to reshape your perceptions of who he is, and his goodness?
so good. So good. Literally everything you say, come on, Jesus, absolutely amazing. I think we've spoken about it before in season one when we were talking about when you're not where you want to be or where you
Mm,
thought you'd be. I mean, that's a disappointment, isn't it? Of going, well, then what? Well, then why am I here, God? Show me. Show me
Mm,
what you have for me here.
yeah.
Maybe here's a challenge. Maybe it's showing you an idol
Oh
or
my goodness.
something that you hope in is something you've put your excitement and energy and hope in, and then you don't get it. Have you have you idolized it?
Put that flaming torch away. I do.
But is it? And also in disappointment, there's two idols. There's a potential um showing you, I think, maybe there's an idol here in what you want. Are you clinging to promises that God never promised you?
Yeah.
Do you
Oh,
really get down in the word, get down in your Bibles to know what he actually promised you and what he didn't? Because if you're going, well, I think this is what God should have given me, maybe he didn't even promise it. Maybe your flesh just thought he did or wants him to. And what's he teaching in that moment? What are you going to grow in? And isn't that exciting, even though it probably feels very uncomfortable, like I feel right now?
I was gonna say I feel so convicted right
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's the Holy Spirit. That's not me. Just something that popped into my head as a little challenge. When you face disappointments, don't pick up a fleshly idol. What I mean by that is sometimes we're so impatient and so cross with God.
now.
I want this, and I've been disappointed so many times, and that pain is real,
Yeah.
but the bottle comforts me quicker than waiting for God's answer.
So true.
Yeah. Or this distraction, or other people's company and praise or want, that
Mm,
that that comforts me quicker than waiting and pushing into Jesus about why I'm here and what he's done. And I relate to that so badly. I will often, in my own life, when I face disappointment in my personal life, seek out the distraction of others rather than actually sit in it with the Lord and go, God, what are you teaching me here? Because
mm,
that's far more uncomfortable and so much easier to just rant and maybe gossip to my friends than it is to actually do the work and actually do the spiritual warfare stuff.
yeah,
Oh,
so
I'm
true.
over.
Oh my gosh,
Over
everything you've just said. Amen, sister. The conviction I feel right now, so true. And I think, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, I've just realized what mine is.
that.
Mine's busyness. I lose myself in all of the stuff that I've got to do because I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to sit and reflect on what's just happened. And if I think sometimes we have this anxiety. I say we, me, I have this anxiety,
Mm,
and hopefully someone else will relate as well around contemplative prayer. That is kind of like if I sit in God's presence, what's he gonna do?
mm,
What's he gonna say? What's he gonna say? Like, is he gonna like knock me to the floor and have me sobbing for the next 5 hours? Is he gonna like tell me everything that I've done wrong? Is he gonna pick me up on all of the stuff that I do and say on a daily basis that doesn't reflect him to other people? Um, and or is he gonna tell me that actually the thing that I'm hoping for is not gonna happen? And that is really scary. It's really scary. And
yeah.
so for me, I just lose myself in the busyness. And I'm preaching to myself here as well. Like, trust me, I really am. God is not a God of disappointment.
Mm,
He is a God of good things, good plans. He's a God of love. Everything he does is because he loves you. Everything he allows is because he loves you. But also, I think, there is that acknowledgement that we do not live in a perfect world. And it's such a cliche, but like, we really don't live in a perfect world. We do live in a world of disappointments and upset and sickness and disasters and all of the awful stuff that happens in this world. Um, and I think the one hope we can cling to that is never going to end in disappointment is that hope of eternity. And
mm,
actually, like sometimes you do have to sit in that disappointment and say to the Lord, I hate this. And sometimes the answer is, I know you hate this now, but in eternity you won't.
yeah.
And, sometimes, okay, you're single, and the answer is actually, you're going to remain single.
Mm,
Sometimes, you know, you will desperately want a baby and you won't have a baby. But actually all of those desires, I think the thing that we are good at forgetting, and again, particularly as young people, I think because we, you there's like you have your whole life ahead of you kind of thing. You've got all of this to come and all of that stuff. You don't know what's going to happen. We sometimes very much lose perspective of the eternal and go, because it just feels like this very far out, or
Mm,
death is really far off for me, so I don't really have to think about this. We do lose perspective of the eternal, and maybe we need to pick that back up again
mm,
and say, okay, this world is really full of disappointments, and I'm allowed to feel my disappointment, and I'm allowed to, talk to the Lord and scream at the Lord and, shout at him and go, like, what is happening here? This is awful. Um, but thank you that, there will be an end to this, whether that's now, whether that's next week, whether that's in 100 years when I am in glory.
yeah, I think you're right. There's a step that we have yet to talk about really properly, and you're sort of getting onto it now, which is, yes, the first step is acknowledging that you're disappointed and letting God do that with you. I mean, let him come and be brokenhearted with you. If you're really sad and you cry, then let him into it. If you need to scream and then bring him with you. Draw near to him and he will draw near to you. Then, maybe do the thing asking, what's here? What's my lesson? What's happening here? God, reveal yourself in this moment of my life. Um, and then there's we need to move on. We need to remember the bigger picture. Um, in order to be hopeful about the future, to have moving forward from disappointment. Actually, it's probably helpful to remember all the times that God has been faithful in the past. Because actually, and if you can't think of any in your life, or nothing comes to mind, then look to the Bible. There are so many examples in that. Okay, actually, this is where God's come through. So
Mm,
remember that he always comes through in his way, not necessarily yours, but in his way, and it's good. He's a good father, and he is Almighty God. And looking at all of the stories in the Bible of where that's been where that's happening, and all the times where people have gone, I'm despairing or I'm disappointed, and then what God has done is what we should do. Get in the Word. Get in the Word. Write scripture on your heart for when you need it.
mm,
That's a lyric from a song. I can't claim that's my own. It's from a song, I can't remember, but it's all about Psalm 23. But write scriptures on your heart about people of faith, about all the times God has been faithful in the past, for when you need it, for when your heart is heavy with disappointment. Because hoping in the future means remembering all the times God has been good before. All my life, you have been faithful, and he will continue to be so.
beautiful. And I think one of the key verses here that I've had in my head as we've been recording is John 10:10, the classic Sunday school verse, but so powerful. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come so that they might have life and have it to the full. And that's Jesus talking. Like he's the one that's giving us life to the full. And I think there's a point here to be made about spiritual battle actually. I know we're going to do a different episode on this, so we won't go too far into it. But like disappointment is a real battleground because this is Satan's opportunity to go, oh, that was really disappointing.
Yeah.
Your God isn't as good as he says he is.
Mm. Mm.
Or that's horrible. Why don't you just sit over there and just think about all of the ways that you've been disappointed.
Mm.
And again, because contemplative prayer can sometimes feel really scary, that is the kind of thing that you then want to do is you want to sit under your blanket and then 24 hours has passed and you don't want to get out of it. And that kind of thing, it's a real opportunity for Satan to go,
Mm.
hey, that hope you had? Nah, that's mine now. And you have to take it back. You have got to choose what you believe in these situations because it's so easy for those disappointments to become bigger, and bigger and bigger. And again, kind of like we were saying earlier, like actually those disappointments then feed into your perception of God, or um, things like jobs, for example. Again, if you go for a job that you really want and you don't get it, and then because you've not gotten it, you kind of go, well, oh well, I went for it once, I won't go for it again. Um, and then you choose to just be quite stagnant
Mm.
in that area. And yes, okay, there are mitigating factors, there are outside things that you can't control. But you can control whether you go for a job again.
Yeah.
Or, again, dating. It's like going on a terrible date and potentially getting really very hurt in it on a date or in a relationship, and then going, oh well, I'm not gonna do that again. And then, you know, you just hide yourself away. Or
Mm.
something really big actually that I saw recently is church hurt.
Oh, big.
And again, if you've been to a church and someone has said something to you that, however well-meaning, has actually been really hurtful,
Yeah.
or you've been going to a church that has said something that's actually just really theologically incorrect, or whatever it
Or
is.
even something that can happen without people intentionally doing it is you
Mm.
go and you're seeking a new church, a friendship, and nobody talks to you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And whatever the situation is, that is incredibly dangerous, because actually, like, if you've been hurt by the church, Satan can really use that to say, oh well, church isn't all that, maybe just don't go, because you won't get hurt again if you don't go.
Mm.
And this is where the spiritual battleground comes in, and it's incredibly important to choose your actions before the spiral starts, before he can even get a look in and go, man, that's incredibly disappointing and I'm really hurt. What am I going to do next? Am I going to sit in this disappointment and let it consume me? Or am I going to show it to the Lord and bring it to Him and scream and cry and do all the things I've got to do, but let Him heal me and let Him move me on from here?
Yeah. I, as you were talking, I was reminded of the time, like not so long ago, that I let it spiral a little bit too much, my sorrow at my disappointments. Um, I have had insomnia for several years, um, and it's been an interesting journey that has been a really slow process of healing. It's been 5 years, 5 years of at the beginning not sleeping at all to then sometimes sleeping, sometimes not, reducing a huge, huge part of my walk. And then I had a moment of healing where I was working in prisons and I wasn't even thinking about my insomnia, wasn't praying into it, and it'd gone. I was like, I'm sleeping normally for the first time in 5 years. And that was amazing. And I was like, oh, I'm healed. Fantastic. This is it. And then it came back. And I
Mm.
was so, do you know who I took it out on? Well, God, for one, but I also took it out on Amelia. I was really grumpy with you one day and was so cross and upset. And I let myself feel anger and frustration because it wasn't fair. All I can say is it was not fair. I thought it was finished, and it was such a whopping great, like it felt like a clobber to my soul, um, that it came back. And for the next couple of days, I sat and I stewed. And if that's you, if you're sitting and you're stewing, tomorrow is a new day. I listened to podcast after preach after preach, and I argued back to them. I was so caught up um in how unfair it was and how disappointed I was and how angry I was. Um and and then there's a new day. God was just so good. He went here. Like you're no longer angry about it. But I remember having that conscious thought, apologizing to the people I'd spoken to rudely. Sorry, Amelia. Now, to conclude my story, I'm not 100% healed from insomnia. I'm not. I have nights where I cannot sleep, and sometimes they are many nights. And then I have nights where I can sleep and my sleep pattern is normal. Now, uh, the thing, now the thing about God is He doesn't always heal with one single dramatic moment where suddenly you're all fine. Sometimes He does that. He's God, of course. He can heal however He wants. But He is God, and He heals in many, many different ways. Rarely is it the way that you expect. Now, on my journey of 5 years with insomnia, 5 long years, I haven't received one moment of healing. I have received many moments of healing. So now, if I get a night where I can't sleep, I rebuke whatever's going on and I lie there in peace, for I know God will always give me the energy the next day. Always. And I believe, and I can look back on that moment of huge clobbering disappointment, and I go, oh, he had something more to teach me.
Mm,
To teach me that healing isn't just like that, even though I've been learning that, and to teach me how to deal with that disappointment and how to move in a place of hurt and unfairness and still think God's awesome. When
mm.
life is unfair, can you still bow the knee?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so beautiful, everything you're saying. It is actually very okay to get your frustration out and talk to one or two, not like seven or eight, but one or two close friends who you trust and who can point you towards God, about your disappointments, and get out all of that anger that actually you really shouldn't be showing to crowds.
Yes.
Um,
Mm.
yes, it's okay to get that disappointment out, but you have to choose to um just put a pin in that anger sometimes and go, okay, I am angry. I'm allowed to be angry, but Lord, how do I move forward?
Yeah. There's a song, I can't remember what it was, but there's my favorite line in it is really it's a Christian song, it's a worship song. But it's like that. It's a song, one of those kind of Christian songs that's not overtly obvious that it
Mm.
is. I love those. I'm like, oh, stealth evangelism, like it. Um,
Really the Mission Impossible music playing in the background.
But there's just a line in this song. It's take a breath, smile, and say, "Today I'm okay."
Mm,
And I don't know why. There's something in that for me with disappointment of going, actually, I am disappointed, but take a breath. Once you've done all the things that Amelia's just been talking about. I mean, you don't have to smile. I'm not going to tell you to smile, but and actually say, I am okay. And these are the things that are true. These
mm,
are the things that are true about my life because in disappointment we're often looking and I do think their enemy makes you, and I loved what you were saying earlier, but he says, oh yeah, your God's not that good because he's not giving you this and you're disappointed in this and this and he's failed you here. Of course the enemy's going to do that, but what's a great kind of counter to that is actually, oh, Satan wants me to look only at my disappointment. God wants me to look at him. And in looking at him, you also see the amazing things that you have. Because, counting your blessings, I've said it before, we'll probably say it in loads more episodes, but there's a reason that's a cliche and there's a reason that's a powerful tool in your arsenal. Of spiritual warfare because actually God has blessed me in this way, in this way, in this way, in this way. And yes, I'm disappointed, and yes, it hurts, and I'm allowed to feel that, but it's still good. It's still God, and I'm still being blessed every single day. Turn your head slightly, look a little bit somewhere else, one step at a time, and then that disappointment we can move on from. We can.
mm,
Even the huge ones, even the ones like that are so big. For example, we've mentioned it a few times, wanting a baby and
mm.
not having one. Did you know that even if you don't have a baby and you really, really want one, that God has still got some really exciting things in your life? That yes, okay, he also has them in heaven, and your point earlier was fantastic, but he also has so much to show you in the now and so much good. So don't let Satan take you away from the excitement of walking with Jesus.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. I love
Ugh.
that so much. Would you rather have a time machine or a teleporter?
Oh, tricky. So just to clarify, does the time machine, can it only stay in one place and it just takes you back in time? Can it move to different places?
If you're using the time machine, you're either going backwards or forwards in time, and that could be to a different place, but not within the same time that you're in.
You can't go back on your own timeline, yes? So you can be like, I'm just going to go back and change that I'm on time for this meeting rather than 10
Oh
minutes.
yeah, no.
Can't do that.
Like,
Okay, great. Okay, well, then in that case, teleport. 100%. Just
okay.
because, from the convenience of general life, because as much as I think a time machine would be amazing to go back in history and be like, wow, this is awesome. Actually, in my mundane, boring life, transporting myself from here to here would be amazing. And then think how much money you would save on train tickets, fuel, planes, and it's got to be better for the
Yeah.
environment, surely. I mean, this is you could just pop over to Athens, just teleport to Athens for the day out and go back.
This is the difficulty for me as someone who loves history and loves travel,
Hmm.
is that like if I had a time machine, incredible. I yes, I could go to Athens and I could see all the things I studied during my degree. I could literally watch them happening, and that is pretty cool. But like you say, if I had a teleporter, would never have to pay for a plane ticket again. I could just travel all the time. Wouldn't even need to worry about it. Be amazing.
Also, if I was time traveling, I would want the doctor with me, and that wasn't in the. I feel like so much goes wrong. Maybe because my knowledge of time travel comes mainly from either Back to the Future or Doctor Who. Um, so I feel like so much goes wrong, and I would need an expert guide um, time traveling. So I feel like it's just me. If it's just me,
Yeah.
teleport. Boring, but efficient.
If you were time traveling, which doctor would you have?
David Tennant. Silly. Just that isn't. No.
I'm sorry. No, it's the correct answer. I was just checking.
Okay,
Just
we're just,
just
yeah, glad
making
we're on
sure
the same
that
page.
is the right answer.
Would you rather be able to speak to animals or speak every language?
Oh, speak every language.
Oh, okay.
I think speaking to animals would be really, really cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I think that's an awesome thing to be able to do. But speaking every language would be amazing because you could just go anywhere and you could make connections with anybody without having to like fumble through.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in what you said, and I part of me agrees with you, but also part of me, I love animals, and I would just love the joy of speaking to them. I mean, languages would be more useful, but more beautiful, I think, would be speaking to animals because really, I could, in theory, I could learn those languages, but you can't. I suppose you can't really learn to speak to animals unless you're Doctor Who level, of course.
Well, there you go. There you go. This has become a podcast about doctors. Should we? Should